Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Chrissy Hodges, advocate for OCD, in particular pure OCD, the name of my memoir. Get it and read about my lived experience with OCD. I'm also a certified peer support specialist. I work with people all over the world to provide support, also referral consultations to connect you with therapists. Therapy is important in working toward recovery for OCD, and we can help you find therapists that specialize in OCD and also provide the support that you need so you don't feel as alone with this really tormenting and debilitating illness. NOCD is an app, and they also provide telehealth around the world. Head over to treatmyocd.com or nocd.com and find out more about what they can do to help get you connected to therapists as well. So today I want to talk about one of my favorite topics, sex and OCD. But it's so true, and we need to talk about it more because people really struggle with OCD and sex and libido and masturbation, orgasms, all of that stuff, because OCD gets very much intertwined and can make you really not have a good time with all of that. So I wanted to talk about today the anxious orgasm. And what does that mean? Well, I mean, it obviously means when you are wanting to have an orgasm or when you do, and anxiety is part of that. So I just wanted to normalize this a little bit because I think people feel like they're the only ones, especially when they're having problems with their sex drive. A lot of times what can happen is that you start to compare what's going on right now compared to your libido before, or your ability to really enjoy sex, to really feel fulfilled, to be able to give something else to your partner, to be able to give something to yourself. You know, you start to think to yourself, what if it is always going to be like this? What if I'm never going to be able to enjoy sex again? What if I'm never going to be able to self-pleasure again? And a lot of that fear comes from what's going to happen when I have an orgasm. Now, we all know orgasms are one of the most vulnerable moments, right? Other than like pooping in the woods. Having an orgasm is one of those moments where if something bad happens right then, you can't go back. And this is absolutely where OCD wants to threaten you the most, right? So the fear then becomes, what am I gonna do if while I'm having sex and while I have an orgasm, boom, I think about a family member, I think about a kid, I think about an animal, I think about, something. I mean, I think about harm or murder or whatever it is that OCD, or I think about someone else other than the person that I'm having sex with. Whatever it is that OCD wants to target, the problem is that, I mean, once it's happening, it's not, I mean, I think you can stop it if you want, but then that takes the fun out of it. But then it's not fun if it happens and you think about something else. You know what I'm talking about. So the problem is that once it happens, then it is, what am I going to do now? Then the mental review starts, right? Did I really think about that? Was that the one thing that sent me over the edge to orgasm? Does that mean that it's real? Am I in denial because this really happened? And what did I really have the orgasm to? Gosh, it's such a hard spot to be in because, again, you can't go back, and these things can haunt you for years. I mean, in reflection, you could look way back and be like, oh my gosh, do you remember that time that I orgasmed and thought about my uncle or my dad or mom or brother or sister? And that can start the cycle of avoidance to whoever it was, to just mental review and rumination. It can be really hard. And then the isolation for that, right? So the shame and embarrassment that you might feel when it comes to having sex, having an orgasm, and something like that happening, the loneliness of, I cannot tell anyone this, especially if it's like pedophilia or a family member or something like that, the last thing that you want to do is tell somebody, oh my gosh, I had an orgasm and then this popped in my head. Because what if people don't understand? I mean, it's hard for people to understand, to be honest with you. I've said this before with OCD, people can understand, or without OCD, people can understand to a certain extent, but then they don't understand to the degree to which we suffer with this. So I just wanted to, and also, we also have to visit the orgasm in the dreams. And I know that I've done videos on this before, but it's so important. I mean, OCD people tend to be really vivid dreamers. And like I've said, most of my, I don't know, like 3 or 4 out of days out of the week, it's like a porno in my dreams. I mean, last night. And it was about one of my friends. I'm going to text them later and tell them. But, you wake up, and sometimes you'll wake up and think to yourself, I think I had an orgasm in my dream. Or you're waking up as you're having one. Or you just don't know. And then the visual or the content of the dreams can really fuck you up. Then it's, well, if I'm having this in my dreams and I'm having an orgasm, that must be my subconscious telling me that that's what I really want. Well, if that is the case, then I guess I really want lots of people and lots of things, because this happens all the time. And I was telling somebody this the other day, like, dreams really used to bother me, right? And because they would be like so real and vivid sometimes, and then when it's about someone it's just like, oh my God, how am I gonna ever face that person after what I did to them in the dream? Or vice versa. And then so I'll wake up sometimes and it will either be like that I've had an orgasm, or that I'm waking up to one. And then, like I said earlier, you can't stop it. I mean, I could try, but it's going to be hard. And I used to get really bothered by that, right? I used to really dive into the content and basically be like, this has to mean something, or I would worry all day about it, or I would worry for a couple days or even weeks about it. And now the way that I turn the conversation around in my brain is, no matter what the content is, no matter who it was in the dream, I'm always like, well, you can't go wrong by starting a day with an orgasm. We're starting on a high. And you know what? That's not me saying that that's what I want. That is just me not engaging in this stupid fight that I am not going to win in my brain, because you can't control dreams. And a lot of times, as many of you know, you can't control what your body's going to do in the dreams, the same way you can't control when your body is getting a groinal or getting any sort of movement or tingling or sensation in any erogenous zones when you're having sexual intrusive thoughts. So that's how I deal with that. But anyway, last point, back to this, I just wanted to let you know that a lot of people struggle with the loss of libido, the loss of their sex drive, and a lot of that fear is driven by what is going to happen when I am in the situation and I'm not feeling it, or I'm comparing, whoever I'm messing around with or fooling around or rolling around with and having sex. What if I'm comparing them to whatever my intrusive thought is? Or what if I'm doing this and the intrusive thoughts come in and ruin it? And then, God forbid, during the orgasm, it comes in and ruins everything. So then you start avoiding. And then avoiding makes the possibility of that even bigger when you do finally decide, I am going to engage in either masturbation or sex, right? Because the same fears come in with masturbation, right? So when you're about to climax, the fear is, oh my gosh, what if something comes into my mind as soon as I'm going to do it, and it just ruins the whole, it ruins the whole session. Well, the more you avoid it, the bigger the fear is going to get. And there's no answer that I can tell you that's going to be like, yay, here you go, here's the key, and go have all the sex you want, and go masturbate to everything and anything that you want. If self-pleasure is important to you, do it. don't give up something that you love if it's important to you, if it's important to the relationship, because avoidance really does make things worse. Again, we can't control what's going to happen within the confines of masturbation or sex, right? We can't control if things come in or out or what's in our head. But I do know that, and Phillipson says this, like, if OCD is telling you if something is important in your life, and OCD is saying you cannot do this because, do it anyway. Keep living life. You can get through this. Your sex drive can come back. I've said this in a previous video, and I want to say it again. When you're really sick, when you have the flu, I mean, do you really want to go and have sex? Do you really want to give a blowjob? Do you really want to get a blowjob? When you, or whatever else, do you really want to do that if you have a 105-degree temperature with a sore throat? No, you don't. And sometimes we have to think about OCD in this way too. When you're really in symptoms, when you're really sick with OCD and things are out of control and it's all consuming, things like sex drive it is going to dive down. Your libido is not going to be what it was, because right now the more pressing issues are your symptoms. The more pressing things in your life are getting your OCD under control. I know it's scary, especially when, like I said before, when you look back and you think, wow, it used to be so much better and it used to be so important to me and I used to enjoy so much, and that's taken away from me. I wish I could go back. This is really common for people to think. Here's the thing, you can't go back, but you can move forward. And one of the ways of doing that is to just do the act anyway and start to get used to not having the fears of things popping into your head. Again, like when we talk about an orgasm, like when you're in it, it's not like right then you can be like, okay, I'm going to control everything that comes in and out. Shit is going to pop in, but like I said with the dream, sometimes you just have to be like, okay, that came in, but you know what? Orgasms are good. And I know that you might be thinking to yourself, Chrissy, this is great and all, and I'm glad that you're telling me to go ahead with it, but wouldn't that be acting on it? If I had the groinal earlier in the day, or if I'm scared an intrusive thought is going to come in and I have sex anyway, and then in the middle of orgasm, boom, a kid comes up and didn't that mean that I acted on it because it was a possibility? No, this is reassurance. I don't care. No, because if sex and self-pleasure and that sexuality is important to you, these are the things you still want to do. The same way if going to the grocery store is important to you, or going to church, or going to, go out with friends, things that are important in your life, right? If you got it triggered at a certain restaurant with your friends, but that's where they meet every week, you would go anyway because that is important to you. If you got triggered at church or your place of worship, but that's important to you, you would go anyway. You would risk that these intrusive thoughts are going to go because that is important to you. It's the same thing here. Lastly, I just want to say, I'm so sorry that this happens to us. I'm so sorry that you're going through this. It's not fair. It's sex, intimacy, self-pleasure, orgasms, all of these things are part of life. They're part of what makes us human and brings joy to our lives. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes sex is hard, especially if, you grew up in an environment that wasn't, good with talking about sex or supporting sex, but maybe it's something you want to explore. You want it to be better. And now here's OCD getting in the way and ruining it and sabotaging it. This is something we can keep working toward. And OCD does not always have to have the front seat in the bedroom, right? But it may creep in every once in a while. And it may pop in during that most vulnerable, awkward moment that the last thing you want to think about is mom, dad, family members, kids, pets, whatever. But you don't have to give it up. You don't have to give up the things that you love just because there's the threat that OCD is going to show up. Because every time you avoid it, that threat gets bigger. Every time you avoid it, you're telling your brain there is danger here. And every time you avoid it and give it up, you're missing out on something that may be really important to you and that you really want to enjoy. So with that, just want to say how sorry I am that OCD is such a shithead and it gets in the bedroom with us. It's not fair. And then I'm really sorry that you're going through this. Therapy can help. Getting support from a professional, knowing that you're not the only one that deals with this, knowing that if it has happened to you and knowing that it has happened to other people, I'm telling you right here, it has happened to me multiple, I can't even express how many times. And I have had to shift the way that I look at it. And instead of seeing it as it ruined my good time or ruined that moment, well, that thought just popped in, but I still enjoyed the feeling. But however you need to deal with that, just know that if it's an important part of your life, it can still be important, just like any other part of your life that OCD is trying to sabotage. So if you get the anxious orgasms, I'm so sorry. And just know that you are not alone in this and that you can get help and things can get better. You can work on this. So I hope you're having a great day and I will look forward to seeing you next time.